The red mist descended yet again for Chelsea, this time at the Emirates. That's right, it's another red card and another loss to Arsenal for Chelsea. I'm joined in the Chelsea Blueprint studio by Chelsea correspondent Dan King and Arsenal correspondent Charlie Wyett. Lads, how are you and what did you make of the game?
I mean, it was not the most thrilling game of all time, I thought, but it was intriguing, it was interesting, and Chelsea were well in it until they conceded the second time from a corner for the second time, and then Neto gets himself stupidly sent off. I mean, even after he goes off, he can't necessarily say it completely cost them the game because they did have chances, and Arsenal needed a really good save from Raya late on to stop the equaliser. But they're just making it so hard for themselves, and I think they'll feel like they compete. This is of the three games they played against Arsenal in the last 6 weeks. They probably competed the best, or at least were in control of the game for longer than they have been in any of the other ones. But it doesn't really matter because they still lost.
Charlie, welcome to the Chelsea Blueprint, your first appearance. We're very glad to have you here. You thought Chelsea gave Arsenal a pretty good game?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I've seen the majority of pretty much all the games at the Emirates this season, and I thought Chelsea were amongst probably one of the better teams I've seen there in terms of they had a go at Arsenal, control part of the second half. The other teams that really had a go have been in the Champions League, and actually Arsenal stuffed them. So I thought Chelsea did all right. Obviously could have got a draw at the end. Could Arsenal have complained if it had been a draw? I don't think too much. So yeah, look, there were obviously a few things wrong with that Chelsea performance as well, but I thought it was all right.
Yeah, we'll get into what was not quite right with Chelsea, but we're going to start off the episode with our Chelsea stocks part of this show, and we're going to ask you, Dan, first to give us your Chelsea player whose stock rose in this game. I
mean, some of the players, the usual suspect did well. I mean, Caicedo was excellent again. I thought João Pedro, for all that he didn't score or create anything, just ran his socks off. But I thought the 15-minute or so cameo of Romeo Lavia just showed again how much Chelsea are missing. I think, with all due respect to Caicedo, he does so many things well, but he is good at passing between the lines sometimes. But in terms of making the whole system work, I think if you had Lavia regularly alongside Caicedo in that role, I think the two of them together would be fantastic. And I think you could see just in albeit that the game situation had changed and Chelsea were going after the equaliser and Arsenal was sitting, I think you could see what Lavia could bring just to the playing out from the back, which is still a problem for Chelsea. But I just think his composure and his strength and the angles he makes would make it a lot easier for Sanchez and the defence to play out from the back. And I think Lavia just in those 15 minutes showed again how good he could be.
And how about your stock faller?
I'd have to say probably Robert Sanchez again. Yeah. I just felt exactly as in the first leg of the Carabao Cup semi-final, his problems with the passing out short from the back, they set a nervous tone for Chelsea. And
it was right from the start.
Yeah, it's right from the start again, and it's. You can't say that one directly causes the other. That's why Reece James doesn't track Gabriel, because there's an overall sense of nervousness that's just been created by the goalkeeper, but it doesn't help. And then I think it sets a tone for the game. It got the crowd up. Got the Emirates crowd up, and every time the ball's going back to, and it got the Arsenal crowd, which is Charlie, I'm sure, will remind us in a bit. Can be pretty quiet. It got them involved straight away and put pressure on Chelsea, and then you concede the two goals from the set pieces.
Yeah, I have to agree with your stock faller. We'll get that one out of the way for me first. I was actually watching the game. I wasn't at the game, but I was watching it in a pub in Centre Parks this weekend, and right from the start I was watching it with one of my mates who's also a Chelsea fan, and he just was disappointed with Sanchez right from the start. I've been a big advocate of Sanchez this season. I think he's been brilliant on the whole, but this was really not a good showing from him. And in terms of my stock rising, I'm going to go with Reece James, because I think he just kind of led the team. He was at fault for the goal, as you both mentioned, or as Charlie mentioned before we started the podcast, but He was at fault for the goal, but I thought he was brilliant overall. I thought he put in some really good crosses going forwards. He was solid defensively, as we mentioned, apart from the goal. I like that he kind of leads the team, and he stayed at the end clapping the away fans longer than anyone else when all the others kind of came in. He's grown into a real leader this season for Chelsea, and I like to see that from him. And I thought he was impressive in this game, apart from, as we mentioned, that one error.
So if he was solid apart from the goal, it means he wasn't solid then, wasn't it? I mean, if you're in a, obviously, I think Reece James is a really solid right back.
Yeah.
He's England's best right back, isn't he? Because the others have fallen away. But if England are in the quarter-final of the World Cup, and that's the deciding goal, England are out of a World Cup because of Reece James. And I thought for that goal, it was clearly his man. I'm not quite sure why he was marking Gabriel. That's a different argument, isn't it? Because you should probably have had Chalobah or something. But he wasn't looking at the ball. He was just looking at the man, then lost the man, didn't get near the man, was really weak, and actually, he's got across and headed across. It was terrible defending.
So do you think he should start for England at the World Cup?
Well, at the moment, there's no other options. He is England's. Well, we've got various players that can play, right back and left back. I'd obviously have him ahead of players like Jed Spence and
Trent.
Trent, no, because we've tried him, and I think James is more solid than him. So I am a fan when he plays well, of course. But I thought yesterday was terrible defending. He's let Chelsea down there and as captain, and you can't afford, knowing how good Arsenal are at set pieces, to not put in a challenge and lose a player at the far post was unforgivable.
I mean, second half, I thought James was really solid. And made some really good challenges, because when Chelsea were pushing up and Arsenal were breaking on them, he was often the last man and winning the ball and being really strong. And he talked about the leadership. I think it was interesting. I think he was trying to stop Neto from talking to the referee, trying to stop him getting that first yellow card. So he was showing some leadership there, and I thought his comments after the game were, to be fair, Rosenior was pretty strong about, we've got to sort this out.
Yeah.
But so James really laid the problem bare, and that probably brings us quite neatly on to the topic of discipline or indiscipline.
Yeah, well, the lack of discipline is quite something at Chelsea, I think, this season, and it's been a course. It's run its course over the whole season, because I remember even our first episode, I think, of this show, we were talking about discipline problems and whatnot, and at the time it was kind of shut down a bit. It was like, they're individual instances, but now we're at a point, we've mentioned a few times, Dan, this scale of silliness, haven't we? And you have Nicholas Jackson at one end, and then you've got whoever at the other end, and it kind of, this definitely fell towards the more silly end of the scale, as did Fofana last week.
Exactly, no, it did. And what was annoying is that the yellow card on that he gets for the foul on Martinelli is, in any other circumstances, a good yellow card, because if it doesn't bring him down, the Martinelli is through and cuts in on goal from the left thing. But having been given a yellow card for dissent, he's left himself with no wriggle room, and it's silly. And I know that we don't play professional football. That's why we're sitting here. Who knows how het up we've been? Who knows how emotional you were getting in Centre Parks the other day?
Yeah, furious.
So if you're on the field, would you be able to keep a lid on it? But that's why they're paid a lot of money to do that and stay cool. And I think if he'd stayed on the field, I think 11 against 11, with the way Arsenal retreated even against 10 men, there could have been something in it if they kept 11 players on the field. And he's only he's 25, maybe 26, so but that makes him one of the most experienced players in the Chelsea lineup, and he shouldn't be doing that. And Fofana, although he's slightly younger, he shouldn't be doing that either. And it's these silly yellow cards which are mounting up. And don't forget that I think Fernandes has now got 7, and Caicedo get 2 and 3 each. That they'll then get a 2-game ban, and we're outside the top 5 now, and it's really is game on for that Champions League place. It's
really starting to cost them this season, because at the start of the season we would say, it's kind of not really, they're getting the red cards, so it's not really costing them, whereas now it's starting to really cost them.
Wins becoming draws becoming losses.
The big one will be that Caicedo, if he gets to 10 yellow cards and he gets 2-match ban, that will be a huge miss, especially if he does miss the Man City game as well.
And I think that was my other takeaway from the game yesterday, having not seen a lot of Arsenal. was that Moises Caicedo is the only player in the Chelsea team at the moment who get an Arsenal's team.
I think with the
I think Reece James would.
Julian Timber.
Yeah,
Julian Timber's the best right back in Europe at the moment.
No, he's not.
Well, he is.
This season,
This
season Reece James has been better than Julian Timber, without a doubt.
No, you've got proper Chelsea glasses on there.
No.
I mean, Julian Timber. If literally, you listen to other managers, they're saying Julian Timber has been the best right back in Europe.
What do you think Timber is better at than Reece James?
Just all round better player,
defending.
Better defending. Yeah,
he's not a better defender.
Yeah.
He's weaker.
He scored more goals probably as well.
I mean, Timber is actually having relatively not a great 4 or 5 weeks because he's knackered. But if you think Arsenal are top, right?
Yeah.
And Julian Timber, the majority of Arsenal fans until the last month would told you he's been their best player of Arsenal, and that's the Arsenal regulars. They will tell you he's been above. It's him and then probably Declan Rice and maybe Silly. But Timber's been the best player, and he's still in the running to win Player of the Season. So for the team that could win the Champions, so you're matching. I'm sure you see a lot more than Reece James and me, so I'm sure he's right up there. But Julian Timber, for me at the moment, would probably be my Player of the Season.
And I think actually going back to the whole thing about discipline, the other thing to take away from yesterday is although it had the game had the chance, the danger of getting quite feisty, and it was a London derby, and it was a competitive game. There were lots of challenges going in. I don't know the exact stats, but not many Arsenal players got yellow cards, and the ones they did were, they were for proper, they weren't for dissent.
Yeah.
Fernandez's yellow card yesterday was for dissent, for throwing the ball down. So there just seems to be a greater. I mean, they are older. We've done the stats.
Yeah, of course.
There seems to be a greater emotional maturity in the Arsenal team than there is at Chelsea.
It is now, but the reason why I'm confident Chelsea and hopefully Rosenior will be given time and they can sort it is that Arsenal last season were paying the price for poor discipline.
Yeah.
And so they've really stamped it out. They had, I think 6 reds. They've got no red cards this season. And also, when Arsenal players have been on yellow cards, Arteta's been taking them off.
Yeah.
So although it is a huge worry and it is letting Chelsea down, it is something that can be sorted quite quickly. So I wouldn't, going forward, wouldn't worry about it too much. It is obviously a massive problem because that's 9's ridiculous. Obviously, it's 10 if you include the former manager as well. Yeah, so it is mad, but they can sort that out.
Yeah, we are getting dangerously close to completing our red card 11 that we've been keeping an eye on.
What's still required?
So we're missing a midfielder and a forward, and a lot of people, when I tweeted it, have been saying it's going to be Cole Palmer's going to get one, and I think Enzo Fernandez is yet to be sent off.
Yeah, so it's been one of those
they look quite likely in the coming weeks.
Or maybe Santos. Maybe Andrew Santos.
Yeah, Santos might pick up a silly one. Who knows? But there's 2 other real talking points I think from this game. One of them is obviously the set pieces, and I think Arsenal in general obviously being brilliant at attacking set pieces, and Chelsea being good at attacking them and terrible at defending them. And the other one is kind of comes within that, I suppose. It's this Declan Rice handball debate. Should it have been handball? Should it have not? So we'll start off with...
It's not even a debate. Yes, it should.
Yeah. Thoughts?
Yeah, it's a terrible decision. It should have been the Chelsea penalty, and it was karma that Chelsea scored because, we've spoken to during the game to the Premier League, and they were insisting that Declan Rice was involved,
it was Hato, wasn't it?
Yeah, with Hato, and he was involved. The reason is, there's no dispute that it hit his arm, and the Premier League VAR and Stockley Park are saying it's because he was involved in the challenge. Well, the challenge
is that he's got Hato around the neck like this.
It should have been a penalty. It's a double penalty. He's committed 2 fouls, Declan Rice there. It's a ridiculous decision, and in that respect, Chelsea thoroughly deserved to score, albeit, ironically, it was an own goal.
Yeah.
But that was fitting really because. Terrible decision.
That's one thing that Reece James is better at than Julian Timber, crossing a ball. He was dropping a lot of those corners on
his delivery was outstanding
in really difficult areas. Really good. But there's no question it was a penalty.
What about the Raya punch on João Pedro?
I mean, I
wasn't convinced by that at the time.
No, that's not fair. More of an issue for me was Saliba rugby tackling João Pedro.
Yeah.
I wonder whether João Pedro actually made a little bit too much of it and sort of going down.
The punch.
Yeah. Well, no, it was more the. I can't remember whether the punch came just before Saliba, but his second half, João Pedro ends up on the floor and he's sort of holding his head, and there didn't seem to be any check. And you go back and again, Saliba's got
holding,
Saliba's got, and it's
all the time.
You know, it's not football.
And that's what annoys me with Arsenal, in that they're getting criticism from scoring from set pieces. They've got 21 now this season, but actually, you know, when they're doing that, they're not causing that many fouls. But when they're defending set pieces, they're getting away with murder, and the refs have got to stamp out. I know other teams do it, but I think Arsenal are the worst. And you know, it's not football. As Dan has said, and we don't see it in the Champions League. We don't see it in international football. I was at a Championship game Saturday. You're not really seeing it there. It's got really bad in the Premier League, but Arsenal, I think, are the biggest culprits.
And that phrase, that it's not football, that's how I feel like watching Arsenal in general. I think this whole, just like sitting there in the pub with my mates, we sat down to watch a football match, and it's just boring. Like, not even, I don't even want to come across too as an Arsenal hater or as a Chelsea fan, but I find watching Arsenal so boring.
I think I feel like the whole season has been like that, and I think Arsenal get the bulk of the criticism because they are the team at the top, and they've got a lot of support worldwide, who are very vocal on social media and so on and so forth. But it isn't fun to watch. But I think you know, because Arteta was there. This is, you know, discussion for days, but because Arteta was there and saw the back end of the Wenger reign, where it was all tiki-taka football when they were winning very little, winning the odd FA Cup, and it's become clear that if he wanted to compete with Manchester City and indeed with like a resurgent Liverpool, they had to find another way, and the way that they found is get a lot of big lads in and get really good at set pieces.
A bit like, look, Arsenal 2 years ago were playing brilliant football. They won nothing, so he's changed that. Yeah. And I think a lot of people agree with you. Equally, you could argue that some of the successful Chelsea teams that won titles were not great to watch. They were big, powerful. So, and like, you know, Chelsea fans didn't care at the time, did they? Exactly, so I guess Arsenal have not won a title for 22 years. I think a lot of the country are not enjoying Arsenal, so I think you're spot on. But equally, in the past, Chelsea, some of the Man United teams, people can't rewrite history. They had some brilliant players, Man United, but they weren't always great to watch under Alex Ferguson. They really weren't.
The last season in particular, when Ferguson had his easily the worst squad of his entire reign, he gave poor old David Moyes an absolute hospital pass. One of the things they had in that last season they won the Premier League were Wayne Rooney playing well, but Van Persie on fire, having the best season of his career, and they suddenly started scoring a lot of goals from set pieces. They'd worked it out. He'd worked it out as well, or Kyrgios, whoever was his deputy at the time, had worked out, right, how are we going to get this squad, which isn't quite so good, and what's going to make the difference for us? And they were, as ever with Ferguson, he's always regarded as like an old school manager, but he was very good in his late years at delegating to other coaches and letting them bring in new ideas, and I think that they wouldn't be significant compared to the number of goals which Arsenal are scoring set pieces now, but the difference in that 2012-13 season that was caused by Man United set pieces is one to look at.
Yeah, well, as much as I've hated watching Arsenal and their anti-football this season, I do agree with Charlie in the sense you can't argue with the results, and if they win the league, it's hard to argue that they don't deserve it this season, because they have been very effective rather than entertaining. But
they could still mess it up. Look, the title, you know, if they lose at the Etihad on April the 18th, Manchester City probably still going to win the title.
Yeah, and one of my favourite teams, on the other hand, to watch this season has been PSG. I think they're almost the opposite, where they play such nice, entertaining football. They're so good to watch. And of course, they've got Chelsea in the Champions League round of 16, but first Chelsea will travel to Villa. It's a really tough run of fixtures for Chelsea, Dan, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think you and I were talking about this last week, and how the sort of optimism, the early optimism of the Rosenior the honeymoon period, results can turn that around very quickly. And we literally said, if they get PSG in the Champions League draw, lose to Arsenal, and then don't win or lose at Villa, then suddenly that trip to Wrexham, the FA Cup, looks really tricky, and then they've got to go to Paris 2.5 days, 3 days later. It's a run of fixtures that could, even if Chelsea were to lose all the league games, they're not going to be out of the race for the top 5, but it's going to put them well on the back foot. And if they were to get beaten fairly soundly in Paris, which I don't necessarily think they will, but these are all ifs, then things can turn very quickly, and it puts, I don't think already, as we were saying, with the discipline, the Chelsea players aren't coping with moments of stress very well. And if they find themselves for a prolonged period outside the top 5 and then having to produce some kind of massive comeback win at Stamford Bridge against PSG, then
isn't this a bit harsh on Rosenior? How many games have they lost? Who have they lost to?
Arsenal 3 times.
Yeah. So isn't it slightly, talk about being given a bit of time.
I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying that's what happened.
And
I think
think Chelsea
have
could
to
beat PSG,
contextualise with the draws to Leeds and Burnley is not up to standard for Chelsea. I know it happens, and you do, obviously the losses to Arsenal are almost inevitable at this point.
I suppose when you say Arsenal drawing with Wolves, was a comparable result to Chelsea drawing with,
and only beat Wolves at home 2 own goals.
These things do happen.
And I think what we're going to end up. Sorry, Charlie.
I think Chelsea could beat PSG. PSG obviously played brilliant football.
Yeah.
Totally agree with you. They were a joy last season in the Champions League in the knockout stages. They weren't the best team in the group stages. It was Liverpool. This season, they've put in some strange results in the French league. So I don't think Chelsea should have any fear going there. No. It's obviously going to be a tough game, but it wouldn't surprise me if Chelsea get through that.
I totally agree, because we saw in the Club World Cup, didn't we? Everyone was saying before the game it was obviously PSG's style of football, they're Champions League winners, they're this, they're that, and then it was first half, the game was over. Cole Palmer incidentally was the one who stole the show, and João Pedro as well. So I wonder whether that will kind of fire PSG up or fire Chelsea up. Chelsea will have the belief that they can go and beat PSG, especially with the second leg being at Stamford Bridge. They'll back themselves to get a decent result in Paris, whether that be a draw, maybe sneak a win, even a 1-0 loss. They'll back themselves at Stamford Bridge like they did against Barcelona.
They should, and by the way, the Chelsea fans will need to bring the atmosphere they brought against
for once
at Barcelona as well. I think that is an important thing. For all that I'm saying, people could start to turn on Rosenior, and as Charlie says, it wouldn't be fair. These next few games, obviously the away fans tend to be more, they'll be more passionate and get more behind their team.
PSG fans are brilliant everywhere
as well. But these next few games for Chelsea, so three away games in a row. Well, it'll be 4 in a row, won't it? So it'll be away at Villa, away at Wrexham, and then away in Paris. The Chelsea fans really need to bring it and to help them, I think, because I think this is a talented team. When it all clicks, they've got it there, and they're perfectly capable of springing an upset on PSG, who incidentally I think are the only team in the big 5 leagues younger on average than Chelsea, and it's a fabulous tie. But I think in order to have a chance of doing that, they really need to build some momentum over these next 2 games and show a bit of authority against both Villa and Wrexham.
And I think people have got to be patient with Rosenior. I don't like some of the criticism that he's got. People made fun of him, all the David Brent stuff. Yeah. The stuff that he's come out with. If he'd been an overseas coach saying that, people would have been saying what a great thinker he was. Yeah. And you got to give him time. And he's a young manager. I know lots of people think he doesn't deserve the chance to get it, but some managers, you fall into a job. I was thinking the other day, someone like Antonio Conte had a very similar path. He got the Juventus job, but he's got sacked at Arezzo and didn't do very well at Atalanta, but he got the Juventus job. And so you can fall into jobs, and I think Rosenior can really flourish as a manager, given a bit of time, given the transfer window, getting the recruitment right, which obviously Chelsea have not done because it's just been mental what they've done. I would love to see him to succeed.
And I think that's an important point to be clear. And what had Arteta done to get for his first job in football?
Totally right. Well, he'd done less.
Yeah, he'd done less. Yeah. He'd been assistant, all right, to arguably the greatest manager of the modern era, Pep Guardiola, but he hadn't put himself on the line like Rosenior had done at Hull and then had done at Strasbourg. But the problem is, and this is the line of questioning we were following last week with Rosenior before the Arsenal game, was, let's face it, Liam, you are not going to be able to go 5 seasons without a trophy like Arteta was, in the hope that one day you're going to deliver a Premier League title, which Arsenal hope is going to be delivered now. He will not get that amount of time. But I think what tells in his favour is, because it was such a controversial appointment in some people's eyes, the ownership and the sporting directors have got so much invested in Rosenior being a success, they will not discard him like them. They've almost got more investment in him being a success than Graham Potter, when they'd literally invested £30 million in buying him and all his staff. I think it was a really big call from them, and they will do everything they can to give him a chance to make a success.
I also think there's lots of managers in the EFL who would really like to see Liam Rosenior do well, because they're fed up of British managers not even being able to get championship jobs now. It's not Premier League anymore. It's really difficult to get a championship job if you're a British coach now. So a lot of those coaches are really rooting for an English or British coach to do to do that. I actually think it's the same with Michael Carrick at Man United. There are 7 British coaches in the Premier League. Rosenior is one of them, and I really hope he stays there and gets the time.
Another good thing to note with Rosenior as well, he got a draw against PSG earlier this season with Strasbourg. He beat PSG last season with Strasbourg, so he definitely knows how to play against the French champions. Obviously, they are a brilliant team, but he knows probably better than anyone else, at least in the Premier League, how to get the best of them. And then the last thing we'll finish this episode with is the away game, obviously, to Aston Villa. We've mentioned Cole Palmer, we've mentioned England. We'll bring those two together, and it's going to be Cole Palmer against Morgan Rogers once again, isn't it?
Well, at the moment there's just no contest as to who should. If there's only one seat on the plane, then Morgan Rogers gets it. I mean, I was exchanging messages with my son today, and he's top of our fantasy league, but he's got Foden and Palmer in his team. He says, I've got to get rid of one or both of them. And he was saying to me, just for a chat, do you think they both go to the World Cup? I don't think they both go to the World Cup. I think that it's even possible that neither of them goes. And at the moment, I think probably, Foden's not even, he's an unused sub at the moment, but Palmer has still got it all to do to show, and he's not going to be starting at this rate, but he's still got it all to do to show that he is worth, even though it's 26 places on the plane, he's got to show that he's worth it. And again, as you say, this would be a great game for him to show his old friend that he's still got it. But it's a huge game for both managers, because I think the saving grace for both Rosenior at Chelsea and Slot at Liverpool could be the way that Aston Villa are on the slide, and it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy, because Emery said that, said, when we were challenging for the title, he said, I'm not even sure we're a top 5 team, and lo and behold, they are. They've lost third place to Manchester United and are sliding down. So I mean, a win under the lights. I mean, Villa Park's a great stadium. Under the lights in an evening game, it's even better. So for Chelsea to come away with a win from there, which would potentially, depending on the other results, take them back into the top 5, would be the real tonic that they need, and a great thing for the senior as well, if he can outwit. Although he says, I never want to make statement wins. Yes, you do. This would be a statement win. He needs a statement win, and to outwit Emery's Villa would be a good way to bounce back from the disappointment.
I think Chelsea will win that. While sort of there's a few question marks over the team, the fans at Villa are really starting to turn on Unai Emery, and the team's been awful. And this is a great chance for Chelsea to go there, get 3 points. Obviously, just sort themselves out. And obviously, I watched Villa the other night, and they're playing with such lack of belief. And Morgan Rogers, as you say, has been brilliant this season. Had a sort of a bit of a dip in the last month. In terms of Cole Palmer, I do agree with you. I think if Tuchel names his squad tomorrow, Cole Palmer's not in the starting 11, but I think he's in the squad. Don't think Phil Foden is. It's interesting that Tuchel named Palmer as his second player in which was an utterly bizarre one, to be honest, but it shows you that he really likes him. So if I was Phil Foden, I'd be extremely worried. I think Cole Palmer's a great player, going through a dip. All players that age have it, but he's got the ability, and I'm sure we're going to see the best of him in the next year again.
Yeah, well, I am certainly hoping that we'll see the best of Cole Palmer, and that he will shine for England at the World Cup, as well as for Chelsea for the rest of the season, starting with that game against Aston Villa. We will be back on Thursday with a bonus episode for you, speaking about that Villa game. But for now, thank you very much for watching this one. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and we'll see you on Thursday. Thank you very much.